Yes, I'm sure you've heard it before. Moving somewhere like Portugal gives you a slower life, more freedom, and a better quality of living. But moving anywhere to a new country as a nomad can be demanding. The truth is that your brain doesn't just stop because you've crossed a border. And often the job and the stress of the job come with you. So in this video, I'm going to share little snippets of a general week in my life as a remote worker living in Portugal and what that looks like for me. So first, a little context into my life, how I work, how I live. So in the last few years, since I quit my 9-to-5 job in the UK, I've been working as an entrepreneur, kind of setting up a wellness business, working remotely as a consultant psychologist. And in this way, my life looks a little bit different from what would typically be the case in your 9-to-5 job, where your schedule's at least partially planned for you. I feel really privileged to be able to work this way, but there are, of course, like in any situation, pros and cons to it. The biggest pro being that I'm flexible, I can kind of do my own working hours, I can travel when I want to, and it allowed me to make this beautiful move to Portugal and live here and have this life that I really enjoy. The biggest con being the fact that I am not always good at setting my own schedule, staying consistent, being organized, and basically just running a business, your own business where you're responsible for that is very difficult sometimes. So since I moved to Portugal, I made myself a promise that if I could, I would set up a work-life balance that felt more like life, less like work. So how does my typical week look? With this in mind, I'm gonna show you. The first thing that I promised myself when I moved to Portugal was that wherever I could, I would have slow mornings. Mornings where I could wake up with the sun, or at least just before the sun, and take at least an hour or two to myself before starting work in the morning. So then mornings become a time where I could go for a sunrise run or a walk. I could watch the sun for a little while, even just from my apartment. Sometimes I will have a tea, or I will go somewhere like my favorite little beach cafe and have a sip of tea there. It's just a short walk from where I live, and it really helps me to wake up in the morning. Usually I do this about 4 to 5 times a week, where it feels like that perfect balance where I do have that time in the morning. And how I start the morning, how we start the morning really sets the tone for our nervous system for the rest of the day, right? So especially for me, having moved to a new country, my brain is constantly processing new information, language, culture, and sometimes with that comes a lot of uncertainty. So even when I don't realize it, I really need the morning to be able to kind of reset. And so mornings are not about discipline for me. They're about taking the time to send my body a message that I'm safe, that I'm grounded, that I don't need to prove anything. And trust me, I've tried all the ways of doing the morning. I've been part of the 5 a.m. club. I've been super productive at 6 a.m. I've been someone who's completed a 2-hour workout by 7 a.m. and started working by 7:45. But for me, having tried all of these things, right now, this is the way that feels best for me to start my mornings. And I also notice that I'm way more productive and efficient when I actually do start working, when I do mornings this way, when they're slower. And of course, this isn't for everyone. Maybe you're someone who loves to wake up and go straight away, or maybe your schedule's not flexible in the same way. But I think there are small things that you can do in the morning just to set your nervous system off on the right path, like allowing yourself a little bit of extra time to wake up, or feel calm and regulated in the morning by going for a 5-minute slow walk, or having an intentional cup of tea or a drink where you're not scrolling on your phone. I think putting my phone in a different room to charge overnight is also helpful for a slow morning. It really helps me not to go first thing on my phone. So in my typical week, in these slow mornings, I often go to a reformer Pilates class. About 2 times a week I do this, usually at 9 or 10 a.m. Then I might go for coffee or brunch with friends that I've made from the class. And this is one of my favorite times of the week, to be honest. I absolutely love reformer Pilates, and I've had a really long and complicated relationship and journey with exercise and food, often where I've over-exercised or been pretty obsessed with being fit and exercising. But reformer Pilates has really helped me rebuild a positive relationship with movement, and I feel very grateful for that. Maybe I'll share a bit about my exercise journey in a video soon. So on these days where I can have this slower morning, by the time I'm back at my apartment and I've had a shower, shower and I've had breakfast, I'm ready to start work usually at about 11 a.m. And often I will plan my schedule so that all of my calls and the bulk of my work start at that time so that I have space for the morning. And sometimes that means working a little bit later into the afternoon, and that feels okay to me. Apart from when I'm super busy and then I need to start at 9 a.m. or with my job, there are times of the year that are particularly busy for schools, because schools is primarily who I work with, and that means that sometimes I will need to take calls at 9. But on the whole, I really try to carve out this time in the mornings. Slow mornings is a typical way that I would have a week here. Another thing that I promised myself that I would do here when I moved to Portugal to have productive days in my week is to create a nice working environment for myself. Because I prefer to work from home most of the time rather than joining a co-working space, I don't know why. I just find the environment often is a bit overwhelming. I can't really work in environments with really bright white light, and gives me a headache. So I feel like often I need more natural light than is sometimes available in a co-working space, but always open to, having a day there sometimes. But anyway, because I mostly work from home, I wanted to feel like I had a few different spaces that I can work from in my apartment. One of the hardest parts for me of remote work is that your entire life can blur into one space and one time, and you spend a lot of time in your home. So having a few dedicated workspaces for me really helps my brain switch into this like work mode and switch off later. So this area is for working, this area is not for working. So I work a lot at my little dining table that I have in my living room, and I've also created an office or studio room that I work in too. I'm still working on decorating this room. To be honest, it sometimes serves as a bit of a cardboard room for when I've had deliveries of furniture since I moved in and procrastinating and getting rid of that packaging. But it's so beautiful to be able to see the sea from the window as I work, and of course have little breaks where I can appreciate the view and have little kitty cuddles and a drink. And something that's really helped me a lot in creating this space is trying to design the environment to support the feeling that I want. So often when I'm working, I want to feel peaceful and calm, but vibrant and productive. And I think that even something like sitting near natural light or clearing one surface or working in the same spot each day really helps your brain feel this exact way, peaceful but focused and less overwhelmed. So even though I work from home a lot and I have these spaces that I really enjoy working, I also head out to my favorite cafe spots quite often, usually to have a nice drink like a matcha latte and to feel a bit less isolated and stir crazy sometimes, usually in the afternoons. It can be quite lonely as a remote worker, especially when you don't have a team, which at the moment I don't. And this is amplified when you move to a new country where you still are building connections and you don't know anyone doing the same thing. So working from cafes gives me something psychologists call ambient belonging, which I love. So I'm alone, but I'm not lonely. And I just love a good cafe. I've always worked so much better with some background activity and noise, people like having a nice time, and the cafe music is always really good. And I'm always really productive in these environments, especially when there's natural light. One of my favorite cafes here is Irukandji, which is an espresso bar and also serves brunch. And personally for me, it's the best matcha here available in Setúbal. Although once you've been to Japan, it's really hard to have matcha anywhere else, but here we are. And I love the cozy atmosphere there and friendly service. Like, the people are just so lovely. I also love to work at a cafe called Rockalot, which is a beach cafe, especially when it's sunny because it is outside. I actually can't believe that it's still warm enough some days here in the winter to sit and work here, look out on the sea, almost have my feet in the sand, and yeah, just be working. It's complete bliss. Next is how I cope in a general week in my life as a remote worker in Portugal when the afternoon slump comes. I used to push myself to carry on working at this time. I would often get this like weird, frustrated feeling in my stomach and basically make zero progress despite staring at the laptop for hours on end. But now, instead of pushing through, I've really learned to step away, and I've realized that sometimes the most productive thing I can do in those moments is just to stop. So when I have this little slump, usually it's around 2 or 3 p.m, I do try to do things that are mentally engaging, that maybe I need to do as part of my weekly routine, but are low pressure. Depending on the day, I'll either go for a short walk, go and get my groceries, or go to my language class, which I love to do twice a week. And walking really helps me process thoughts that I didn't even know I had or that I was carrying. And it kind of lets me let go of any stuck stress or emotions from morning calls. Working as a psychologist can often be really emotionally challenging, and it's important for me to stay grounded and clear, especially so that I can do the job properly without kind of being biased in any way. So when it's time for a walk, I can just soften, let ideas come into my mind and my emotions sort of reorganize themselves. And that doesn't really matter if I'm purposefully going for a walk or I'm just walking to get my groceries. Anything that I'm doing really that is just different from the work I've been doing really helps me reset. Language classes are also amazing for this, and I love that my language classes here that are in person are from 2 p.m. because it's the perfect time for me when my brain really needs something different to focus my attention on. So learning about something different feels like I'm giving my brain a break from the regular kind of day-to-day work that I'm doing. And it gives me a sense of progress too in a different way without the intensity of like pushing myself to work, because I just really enjoy it. All of these things, these afternoon slump times, really shift my mind. And actually sometimes even just a walk to a cafe to then pick up work again in a cafe, like writing or making scripts for videos, things like that. These are really, really good times for me to do something different. Usually then, if I've had that little break in the afternoon, in the late afternoon or evenings, I will maybe do a little bit more work. Sometimes writing reports or planning workshops and events or editing videos. And then I love to reconnect with myself in the evenings by doing something that I love. Something creative, restful, cooking food I love. And on Tuesday evenings here, I started attending an art class, which I love. The lady who runs it is such a great teacher. I've made so much progress with art skills. I've always loved art and being creative, but I've never really had the patience to properly learn how to draw or understand the principles of art, things like shadow or value. So I was really nervous to start these classes, but I've been so happy with the things we've learned, and the teacher is just so patient and kind and just generally really good at what she does. So that's something that I'm really happy that I have started doing. I'll sometimes go for a run in the evening if I'm feeling frustrated or like I have pent up energy, and I feel like a run at night is just something that is incomparable for me. Like, I do love running anyway, but in the nighttime, it always just feels like you're a bit superhuman. Sometimes it feels magical, you know, like especially if it's a little bit fresh, like in the winter. Even here in Portugal, like at night when the temperatures drop slightly, it's just so liberating to be able to go and run outside, breathe the fresh air, see the stars, hear the water here at night, you know, it's so beautiful. So that's another thing that I love to do in the evening. I honestly just sleep like a baby after I've done this. I would love to build my running skills this year in 2026. It's one of my little soft goals is to build a bit of a running routine, and the environment here in Setúbal is definitely so beautiful, so it really helps with that. And so that is generally the main parts of my day when I'm looking at a week in my remote life living here in Portugal. And then there are the weekends. So weekends for me are an interesting one. Again, because of the way that I work, and probably as you can tell, the reduced hours that I maybe work in the weekdays, I will often work a little bit on the weekend too. And I really enjoy doing this. I really like what I do, so it helps me to spread work over 6 or 7 days of the week. And I feel like every single day I have time to myself when I do it this way. So either I have the mornings or the afternoons, and all of those are like a chance for my brain to reset. So when I am working, I work much more efficiently. And I know that this might not be for everyone, but I really like this way of working and living, this kind of balance. So every week I also try to make sure I have at least one day where I don't have to work. I can have it off. But because I like doing it, still often I find myself like writing ideas or making plans for work on the weekends. And sometimes I just feel more productive on the weekends. So that's how it goes. I often love to also clean the apartment on the weekend to get it looking tidy. And usually work and cleaning are around other fun social things. Especially since I moved here, I seem to have been in a position where I've made new friends, or socializing has become a little bit more important for me, especially so I don't feel isolated or alone here. And so often on the weekends, I'll be doing something fun with the friends I've made here, heading to the beach. Even in the winter, it's so fun to do a beach day here. I've been really surprised. Or going to a tile painting workshop, which I went to in Azatown with some friends, and it was amazing just to see how they make the tiles, to see the workshop. We got to choose a tile and paint it, and it was generally just a really wholesome time spent together. I haven't picked mine up yet, so I don't know how it will turn out, but we will see. I will show in a later video. On Sundays, I always make sure I spend time intentionally thinking about the week ahead. I love to check in with myself in terms of my energy levels and what plans I have in place for the week. I make sure that my schedule is kind of well spread out where it can be. For example, if I have a really busy Monday, sometimes I do have a lot of work on a Monday and it will be like a typical 9 to 5, but then a lighter Tuesday so that I have space to breathe and recover and focus on the other things that I'm doing, other YouTube videos and editing, things like that. And just generally prepare myself to be the best version of myself on each day when I am working, no matter what I'm doing in the rest of the week. This is really important for me. So this has been a little snippet into a typical week in my life here in Portugal in the last few weeks. Disclaimer, this schedule is how it's been since I finished the Portuguese theatre that I was involved in November, because at the time I was in rehearsals performing almost every day of the week, and this kind of took over my life a little bit. If you're interested in learning about what my journey in the Portuguese theatre looked like, you can check it out on one of my other videos on my channel. And of course, I'm always picking up new hobbies and activities that often impact my schedule. So in the new year, I'm really hoping to pick up rowing here. I rowed for many years back in the UK and I'm really excited to do this again, and hopefully I'll be able to share some of that here. I think the biggest thing that I've learned over the last few years is that balance isn't just something that you find or magically happens. This kind of work-life balance that people talk about, I always kind of thought that it would just happen. I expected it to just arise in my life, but it's something that you have to build slowly, intentionally, and with awareness and belief that your life can look different from either what it looks like right now or from what we're kind of societally told life looks like. And working for myself and living abroad has given me so much freedom, but it's also asked a lot of me to create structure when there isn't any, to listen to my body and trust myself, which was a whole journey on its own, and to be able to stop measuring my days by how much I've achieved in the day and more about how I feel. So success being like, oh yes, I feel calm and grounded and vibrant and productive today. Like I didn't feel frustrated. This is really helpful for me as a gauge of like whether a day was successful or not. And this version of my week obviously isn't always perfect. It definitely changes depending on my work, my energy, what's happening in life, but it feels like it helps me to feel more alive to live in this way. And it's definitely the closest I've been to this work-life balance that's weighted more towards living rather than working. And it definitely hasn't been an easy journey to get here. And to be honest, the version of me 2 years ago from here could not imagine the life that I'm living now. And maybe me 2 years in the future will be living a different life again that I can't imagine. So all this to say, if you're feeling stuck in your weekly routine or your life schedule, or you don't feel like you have a balance, ask yourself what feels good to you. What would the ideal week or day look like? And then think about small steps to get there. For me, it always feels like the tiny small steps towards a big goal are the most important thing to focus on. Because if you just have a big goal, you have no way of getting there. So for me, making my life in Portugal work hasn't been about setting a big goal or doing more or being more disciplined. It's about learning how to support myself better every single day. So what things can you do every single day that make you feel better, and then work from there? Maybe that's the real work of building a life anywhere. Creating rhythms that let you feel calm, capable, that help you feel at home, even when you're somewhere new and everything around you is new. So if this season has taught me anything, it's that a slower life does not mean a less productive one. It's actually a more honest one. And if anything, it's been more productive since I slowed down, because I have more capacity and more energy to actually work. And when I do, it's better work. So tell me, what helps you feel calm and capable in your week? Did anything here stand out to you? I would completely love to know. And yes, have an amazing start to 2026, everyone. Looking forward to sharing my journey with you this year. Sending so much love to you all.